this is in relation to a sketch that we have planned.
Yeah.
But this therapist said men that don't help at home is a symptom of bigger problems with the men themselves. And basically, she's saying men don't have they lack emotional intelligence, which is why this is the big reason that
We're
men
big dummies.
yeah, that's
We're
what.
just stupid.
There you go. Emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and use one's own emotions. And I see all these TikToks with people being like, you can't expect your partner to be intimate with you if you leave clothes on the floor. But putting clothes in the hamper and running errands, putting the dishes away, that doesn't make me want to be intimate either. So it's a girl that has like, she's blaming it on emotional intelligence, but really, if you want to boil this whole thing down, and this kind of, you know what, I'm going to tie this into this other article where they said millennial people, a big percentage of millennials say that the Joe Rogan podcast is a red flag. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, who are you and what do you do? Because when they say that, when they're kind of saying it's like the men aren't, doing enough housework, it's like, well, if your argument is our relationship is uneven, then your argument's our relationship's uneven.
Yeah.
If it's not, then it's not.
Yeah.
If your argument is like, he works, he makes more money, and if you're like, we make the same amount of money, I do all the kids' shit, and I do everything around the house. It was just like, this ain't emotional intelligence. Like, you just got an uneven deal.
Yeah, he's just like kind of...
You got a deadbeat, pal. Yeah. But the problem is, with these women, the things that they say... Like the amount of, in the last little while, how many times have you seen like the red flag shit and it's just shit that every guy does?
I mean, sometimes for sure, yeah, where you're just like, yeah, I don't know what you're expecting here.
Well, that's why it's like, it's all kind of bullshit, right? Because when they go, Joe Rogan's a red flag or whatever. That's like, the equivalent, like saying UFC's a red flag or watching football. Just shit everyone does, right? Not being, there's two, one is like, just any guy that isn't like crazy liberal, which is, a minority of men right now.
Yeah.
They're like the minority. What percentage of like men can you just be like, are you about all this fucking new shit? Conservative or liberal?
It depends where. Like even in New York City, it's still not the majority for sure.
Fuck no, dude.
Yeah.
And then that's the equivalent of being like, and then they go watch shit, like they're watching like, Call Her Daddy How to Be a Slut podcast.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of...
should.
Well, I'm just saying, and then they go, we don't want you to listen to Joe Rogan. You go, I think a lot of people would argue it's worth... So I think there's a thing where it's like, a lot of girls are sort of... I think there's a lot of people who've sort of brought this up, but they sort of have a unequal idea of like what their worth is and what's normal.
I mean, but again, it's like you're allowed to have any preference you want. Like I don't think that's an issue. Like the market is going to clear itself out. Like if you want to be like, hey, I don't date guys who listen to Joe Rogan, and you interrogate every guy you want to date with, either you're going to find the guy and who doesn't listen to Joe Rogan, and he's probably going to be pumped that
the guy that lies about it.
Oh, either he lies about it, or he thinks similar to you, who thinks Joe Rogan's toxic and he hates him, which those guys exist, and then congrats. Or you're going to be like, oh man, the guys who I have available to me who don't listen to the Joe Rogan podcast or things are all my red flags, are like not really good options. And then you're going to start kind of like conceding certain points, or you're going to die alone.
They're so also full of shit though, because it's just like,
look, like I don't like for example, I don't, what's one of my red flags is if a girl who I'm seeing is annoying. I still have an annoying girl though.
It's never stopped you.
It's like, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean.
That's if you fucking, if I get a phone call, go, hi, we're running a poll with Axios, and can you just answer these questions? I'd be like, yeah, that's a big red flag for me if she's fucking annoying.
That's what I mean. Well, I mean, okay, listen, we've been like, I would say my entire life, and even more so in the last like 10 years or so, been saying like pretty wild shit. You know what I mean? All of which these type of girls would all say is like a red flag. Mm-hmm. I don't think once had any girl, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I've a single time in my life really had, I've had girls argue with me.
Sure.
But I've never had them stop talking to me.
No, for sure. And like maybe...
So it's like all this shit is just like a lie.
Yeah, and maybe on like in the context of a swiping on a dating app where there's like actual no communication.
If you're in the thing with like, alpha brain and like if you're like you might be like, that's a lie.
You're like just like holding an elk and like just a bow and all that. But yeah,
you wouldn't probably want that in New York.
And like some girls girls, might swipe left on you because that's such a like low friction, easy thing to do. But
they have no clue what they want, man. Because they're talking about that, and people have all pointed this out, but like, unless you're really like that top tier, like activist, like really all in, 90% of women that like say any of this shit, it's like none of them do any of it when it comes to dating.
Yeah, you know, it'd be a good prank actually that I just thought of. Then you say that is, you know, those people who glue themselves to the sidewalk and shit in the road, and then they glue themselves, and then you bring a stereo and you play the Joe Rogan podcast, but they can't go anywhere because they just glued themselves to the road. They go, I hate Joe Rogan. You go, probably shouldn't have glued yourself to the street.
The climate activists. Yeah. Oh my god, that's so funny.
They're fucking glued. Too bad. Strong glue, huh?
People glue themselves to the painting, and then you come in and you bring like a fucking
and then you just whatever
Kanye West speech, just like on fucking loop. you give him Trump's inaugural address.
Just play. Go. Sorry.
You just put Glenn Beck radio on.
The Blaze.
Dude, that's so fucking funny.
Tucker Carlson, just every one of his Twitter videos.
Holy shit, that's a really funny prank, dude.
Yeah.
They'd be fucking. They'd probably go,
fuck the climate.
Just
I don't like the climate anymore.
That might be one of your best ideas.
There we go.
But yeah, it always is like so funny when they're just normal shit that like your average dude does, and they're just like against it. Just like your average, most people, it's kind of like, oh, I want a really smart guy. Everyone just ends up with the dumb guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
Our crew, I was actually thinking kind of is funny the extent to which like our whole crew is kind of dumb, and not like necessarily low IQ, but like you're loopy and dumb as much as you don't want to admit it.
Yeah, I was definitely.
Me and Johnny the other day we're going to film in we both live in the East Village. We're going to film at Times Square. We take the train an hour and a half in the wrong direction.
What do you mean an hour and a half?
Not an hour and a half, but before we realized that we're in the fucking sticks. Yeah, dude.
We went to Queens or something.
We went to
Queens.
2 stops.
We're just like, is there anyone in our crew that isn't stupid?
Oh yeah, because if you take that,
the three of us could easily be walking the wrong direction without anyone noticing for a while.
Yeah, it happens.
So they're saying that's a big problem, red flag. Well, then the girls are doing stuff like, can the Harry Potter fandom carry on while ignoring J.K. Rowling? You know what? That's my red flag.
Yeah, you know what? I'd like to just point out one major red flag about this poll is if you just pick up the phone from an unknown number from a place that's doing a poll.
Yeah,
and you answer it and then take the poll.
Well, they're not all phone polls. You don't know that.
Yeah, they are. They just call you.
What the hell?
So it's like you see unknown number, pick it up. Someone goes, hey, do you have a minute for us to do a poll? Think of those people who are going through with the poll. Major red flag right there.
It is funny, though. There is a bit of the opposite where they go, turnoffs for men or girls that have no hobbies, say Black Lives Matter,
Communism.
are interested in
Communism
astrology.
was like the biggest one.
Communism was the biggest one. When it comes to Gen Z, the biggest is red flag is identifying as a communist.
Yeah. But
So
not having
but it's
hobbies
literally
was
just
the,
like
was
girl-
the most comparable one for both.
But it's just so funny that girls are just like, our things are we don't want someone that's like not liberal, and the guys are just like, we don't want a chick that's all
I don't
liberal.
want some lazy freeloading piece of shit.
But it's like, okay, but everyone does end up together, so it's like everyone's lying.
Yeah.
I guess liberals are, girls are more liberal and dudes are more conservative, I guess.
That's just a fact.
It's just a straight
That's
up
just
fact.
based on temperament. That's just true.